So let us begin our service with an opening prayer. So let us pray. We know that God is a love that has no end and a power that knows no bounds. God's healing power of divine life is restoring, healing, and revitalizing our world in this very moment. We let go of any fears or anxieties, and we affirm that we are all safe, healthy, and protected. We bless all those who support us in maintaining vibrant, radiant health, peace of mind, and abundant love. And we especially bless those fathers who are a part of our service today and give thanks for the love and joy that you bring to our world. And for all this we give thanks. Amen. And now I'd like to share with you a reading of the daily word, which ironically says, Father's Blessings. And so the affirmation today is, I give thanks for all expressions of fatherly love. My relationship with my father may have been positive and nurturing or difficult and challenging. He may have been a strong presence during my childhood, or he may have been absent. We may be part of each other's lives today. We may be estranged, or he may have passed from earthly life. Whatever our circumstances, we bless our fathers, and we see them enfolded in divine love. As we honor our fathers, we also acknowledge all the father figures who have helped guide us along our path. Family members, teachers, neighbors, clergy, employers, and friends. We bless them as we recall all the ways each one, in a unique way, has modeled strength, guidance, wisdom, and patience. Their presence remains with me, with each of us, thanks to their gifts of fatherly love. And then you enter in area 22828. 22828, and there's some flyers out that you can pick up that have that information on it as you leave the church. If you'd like more information on Unity, all you have to do is send us. Everyone is here today and watching online by divine be on your spiritual journey. You are always and wherever you happen. So we have some wonderful opportunities at Unity for now, even though we're kind of unlimited and we have some process using things going on. One of the things that we've done over the last, taking care of the lab right over that way, and it was built in 1990. Labyrinth, in fact, we're listed for opportunity Labyrinth website to come and just walking in a different way. Labyrinth, being present with us and to process. We have rewarded the Labyrinth first for our July challenge in that letter, so you'll have an opportunity to see that and get information about that as well.
To dance with my father again. When I and my mother would disagree, to get my way I would run from her to him, make me laugh just to comfort me, and finally make me do just what my mama said. Later that night when I was asleep, he left $1 under my sheet. Never dreamed that he would be gone from me. the only man she loved. I know you don't do it usually, but dear Lord, she's dying to dance with my father again. Every night I fall asleep, this is all I'll ever dream.
Ah, thank you. Makes you kind of think a little bit, doesn't it? Father's Day, I think, is more about us remembering and thinking and paying attention and being aware of our experience. And I'm delighted to have an opportunity to speak on Father's Day, because over my years in ministry, Father's Day always seemed to fall on the weekend of our Unity Conference in Kansas City, and there was always a guest speaker, and so I never had much chance to share my feelings and experiences of being a father. And so I want to begin today with a little clip, a video clip that I think is kind of relevant, that I think you'll find interesting.
Okay, so on a more serious note, but still joyful because everything's okay. But there was this little girl in Indiana whose father started to have chest pains and he was struggling to breathe. She's 5 years old. The father calls 911 as he's starting to feel like he's in trouble. The minute 911 connects, he can't talk because he's struggling to breathe. And his 5-year-old daughter takes control. Here she is. I'll do it in pieces, but here she is talking through it.
What's wrong?
My dad can't hardly breathe.
Okay, hold on a second, okay?
Okay.
How old are you?
I'm 5 years old.
Okay, what's your name?
Savannah.
Okay, Savannah, hold on. I'm getting them dispatched, okay?
Okay. You need to come real fast.
Okay, Savannah, I have them on the way. Is your daddy still awake?
Yeah.
Okay. Is your front door unlocked, Savannah?
Is our front door unlocked? No.
Okay, Savannah, can you go unlock that front door for me?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Don't worry, Dad.
Okay. So she stays calm and collected while she's talking to the 911 operator. But what's so adorable is that she's giving, just getting basic information, but she's concerned that she's not really dressed for when the firemen get there.
Can you ask him if this has ever happened before?
Has this ever happened? No. So far, so good. He's so awake.
Hey, ask him if he has any kind of chest pain.
Do you have any chest pain? Yes.
Okay.
This is his first time.
Okay. I got him on the way, so...
Okay. We're in our jammies. And I'm in a TikTok, so I'll have to get dressed.
Okay.
I know what I'm going to wear, but he really needs oxygen real fast. Yes, the door's unlocked.
Okay.
Fantastic. So fantastic. And I love when she keeps saying, so far, so good. She says that several times throughout it, and you know that's probably something her mom always says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I was telling the guys here that when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I started babysitting for a little girl down the street that was about 5 years old. And the first time I babysat for her, I said, okay, it's time to go to bed. And she said, okay, march. But I thought, well, that's what her mom says to her. So anyway, the 911 operator wants to make sure that Savannah stays with her father until the ambulance gets there, because she still wants to make sure she puts on a different outfit.
Okay.
So you still doing okay, Savannah?
Yeah, he's okay.
Okay.
I'll be in my room, and I'll be putting on,
Say, Savannah, I want you to stay there with your daddy, okay?
Okay.
I need you to make sure that he stays awake, so...
Oh, okay. I got that. And we have a dog that's really, small.
So he's friendly?
He's friendly.
Okay.
He kind of barks.
He kind of barks? That's all right, though.
You, come on. Family is on the way. Come on, Lulu. Yeah.
Is your dad okay still?
Yeah.
Okay.
So far, so good. Stay calm, Dad.
Stay calm. Oh.
Stay calm, Dad. How do you feel? So far, so good. All right. Oh, so it's so poignant. It's so true. I mean, you know, that experience. And you know, what I was thinking when I was listening to that is that the dispatcher must be a dad, because he knew just how to talk to her. He knew just how to keep his voice, how to just be present and keep her focused and keep her in that experience. And you know, we find ourselves, you know, I'm sure that many of you can think of a lot of experiences in your childhood growing up when you found yourself in unusual circumstances like that, or difficult circumstances like that, and the universe just sort of shows up, and we cannot predict many of those things and how we're going to respond and what we're going to do. And it's interesting that you can think about this experience for this girl, and that could have been a tragedy. It could have been a panic night. It could have been a time when she could have had a very negative memory in her experience, a very negative experience. And yet, because of that dispatcher, she just kind of moved through it, helped her through it, kept her calm, and she still, I just loved it, she still wanted to get dressed. Because she knew she was going to have to go with her dad, because obviously she was there alone. And I think that's how most things show up in our life. That there are fortuitous circumstances that show up, and it's not whether things happen to us or through us or whatever. It's how we show up in the context of those things that occur in our life experience. I know as a father, I have 4 children, and I remember back in 2011. My son Jordan was graduating from Columbia College in Chicago, and he'd gone there in 2007 for his 4-year experience in college, and we came to bring him to that place because of a fortuitous experience that happened at a college recruiting rally. That the guy that from Columbia College had the most energy and the most enthusiasm for his college, and Jordan wanted to go to film school, and they had a really good film school, and it's a private school, and so we're like, you know, okay, so we're trying to figure all that out. Finally, he went there, and went through the 4 years. One of the hardest things I did was to drop him off there, although it helped that when we went down to his student housing, he was on the 15th floor of a high-rise condo in downtown Chicago. That's student housing with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city downtown. I thought, well, I could do this. You know, I could stay here. And so he did really well. He paid for part of his school. He was able to work and wait tables and work at the Space Needle in the summer, and he was able to do all those things and participate. And it was interesting, and at his graduation, all the family was there. We were all in that experience. And graduation is not something that I always look for. I look forward to the graduation, but the ceremony can be a little tedious and long, and you know, especially when it's a 12,000 student university, so you know how many people are there at the graduation going through that experience. And so we were sitting in this auditorium, a very large space, and it was really interesting that the Columbia College is a college of artists. So there are theater folks, there's musicians, there's designers, there's people who want to be producers or directors or film production people, or what, you know, that's their primary focus. And I got to tell you, it was one of the most creative graduations I have ever witnessed. The music was absolutely top of the line music. They had choreographed the ceremony in a very, you know, because the students ran it. The students did it, and they had an incredible amount of talent and ability. And I remember the chairman of the board of the college got up to open the graduation, and he said, and he stands there and he says, "We are Columbia College, and we are the biggest and the best at what we do." And that was it. And I was like, boy, that was worth $25,000 a year. You know, I mean, that's what I was thinking. How much did this cost? It was going to happen. And all of a sudden, he just immediately just nailed it. I mean, he just said, we are the biggest and we are the best in this ceremony. And everything just sort of conspired together to just make me feel like this was the best thing that could have possibly happened. And a former student got up, and you know, the speeches were really short and crisp and quick. And the student got up, and he was a producer in New York. He got into Columbia College with a GED because Columbia has an open enrollment, and he talked about that a little bit, how important that was for him. And he went to New York, and he was very successful in theater, producing and directing plays in New York City. And so he came back and he said, I got to tell you, the one thing I want you to remember, he says, the secret to success is to place yourself in the path of the greatest number of fortuitous accidents possible. The secret to success is to place yourself in the path of the greatest number of fortuitous accidents possible. Now, I resonate with that. I resonated with that statement because my life has been a series of fortuitous accidents that have occurred in my experience. And it's been so true. And I don't believe there are accidents in the universe. I believe that the father that we choose for ourselves is no accident. I think we choose our parents in some way. There's some choice that we make internally in our as spiritual beings that we choose to be in these situations. So there are no fortuitous accidents. There's only the hand of the divine doing what it's intended to do, so that we have the opportunities when we move through our life to make the most out of who we are and why it is that we're here. And our part in that is to make the choices, to make the decisions, to go with it or go with the flow, or to step into that experience. My youngest daughter, Caroline, is a really good athlete. And in 2009, she decided to go to the University of Idaho, and she got an offer for a walk-on. It wasn't a scholarship; it was a walk-on opportunity to play soccer for the University of Idaho. And she turned down a scholarship actually at Western Oregon because she wanted to go to a Division I school. And it didn't hurt that my father and mother and brother and I went to the University of Idaho. All of it was kind of a family thing. And so my dad would have been he was passed on by then, but he would have been absolutely ecstatic to have one of his grandchildren go to his alma mater, which was so important in his life. And so she went to the University of Idaho, and she knew that she was going to be third string that first year because there were two girls ahead of her, and she wasn't used to sitting on the bench, but she resigned herself to doing that. And so she went through the first year, and everything was fine. And I went to the games as much. I think I went to almost every game that was home. And so then the next year, there was a senior goalie who graduated, and so there was just two goalies, and they didn't recruit a new goalie, so they just had two of them. So she ended up being second string the second year, and she felt like she could become first string, and she was really working hard, and she was focused, and she'd gotten partial scholarship at that point, and she was engaged, but I noticed that she was very disappointed that she wasn't able to play. She had never had a chance to play a single game up to that point, and she was she wasn't used to it. She was used to being the most important person on the team in many cases, and so it was very challenging for her. And so she was in this difficult situation, and we went through the year, and she didn't get to play one single game, because the goalie never got hurt and was doing just fine. And so we came to the awards ceremony, and it was in December, and I drove down to Moscow and just to be there, to be supportive. They went through the ceremony, and they gave a award to this person, gave a award to that person, and I was just kind of, being there. And all of a sudden, they came to the most inspirational player, and they said the most inspirational player award, which is voted on by their teammates, is Caroline Tolles. And I was like, shocked. How can you be the most inspirational player and never having played in a single game? And so she got the award. Afterwards, I said, okay, Caroline, you got to tell me why did you get this award? What had happened? Well, apparently, she was feeling frustrated, and she wanted to contribute to the team in some way. And she noticed that in the locker room, the players, it was very quiet before the game, and so they would come out of the locker room and they were flat. And it took them a while to get going in the game, and it probably impacted them in some way. And so she thought, maybe there's something she could do to change that. And so she went to the coach and said, would you mind if I put together some activities in the locker room to build the energy up before the game? And he said, well, sure, go ahead. So she did. She started creating this, she built this program where they would do this certain process. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but they would come out of the locker room and they would come out pretty fired up. And then she would take the players on the bench, and during the whole game, they literally stood on the bench cheering with cheers and all these kinds of things that they were doing. They had cheers for each of the players that were out playing, that they would cheer when they had the ball. And so, but I noticed that during the season, but I didn't think much of it. I noticed that our team was there up excited, and I just thought that was the way it was, and the other team were just kind of sitting on the bench. Well, she had created this, and the coach at the end of the season said, I credit you for having helped us win 3 or 4 of our games this year. You made a difference. And that's why she was voted the most inspirational player, because she focused on inspiring the other players. And I couldn't have been more proud of her than if she had been the MVP for having taken a situation that was difficult and challenging and turning it into a fortuitous moment. Turning it into an experience that I think laid the groundwork for her for the rest of her experience, not only at University of Idaho, but also as a teacher. She teaches in the Seattle School District. And so fortuitous accidents are events that show up by right of consciousness, that we draw them to ourselves and to that experience, and we choose to do something with them. We make a choice point. There's these choice points in our lives, and we choose to move forward and do something with them. And I don't think, like I said, I don't think there are any true accidents. And when I met Carrie, some of you know this story. I met her August 3rd, 1980. Not that I remember these things, right? I remember it because I remember meeting her because I was the chairman of the steering committee for Unity Study Group here in Coeur d'Alene. And there was a group of us that got together and wanted to start a Unity Church, and so I was the chairman. And so we decided, we wanted, instead of being a study group, we wanted to act like a church, be a church. So we decided to start having Sunday services, and the first Sunday service was August 3rd, 1980. That's 40 years ago, right? And so, not that I'm counting, but it was 40 years ago. And so that Sunday, I was doing the platform stuff, welcoming people, helping to lead songs. We didn't have a very organized group, but we were doing okay. And after the service, I think she felt sorry for me, and she, trying to lead the sing, she came up and said, "Would you like some help with the music?" So I think I could do that. And I said, "Well, sure, I'd love some help with the music." And she just had this bright smile and just this willingness. And so I said, sure. And she became the music director of our group, and she was the music director for 8 years, I think it was, 8 years. Well, a couple years later, and we became friends, and we worked together on these projects and stuff. And a couple of years later, I was getting ready to go to ministerial school, and I was going to leave that summer, and I was really kind of struggling with leaving because I'd never lived any place other than within 80 miles of Kellogg, right? And so I was like leaving to go to Kansas City, and it was kind of a big deal. And so Carrie was a hypnotherapist at that time, and so I had a session with her, and she made a difference for me. And that session kind of opened me up and helped me to kind of make the move into ministry. Well, I left, and I saw her the next summer when I came back, and then didn't see Carrie again until I think it was 1992, 93, something like that. I was doing a workshop in Seattle. I was a minister in the Seattle church, and I was doing a workshop at a holistic event at the Seattle Center. And she showed up at the workshop and came in and said hi, and we had a chance to visit. Didn't see her again until 2009. And it was in 2008 that I was going through some difficulty in my relationship. We were having some major challenges. It was in December. I was out at the lake place here in Coeur d'Alene, kind of praying about it and working with some energy and stuff. And I thought, I need somebody to talk to. And I immediately thought of Carrie, And so I started looking in the phone book, and I couldn't find anything in the phone book, and I looked and Googled, and she's had a significant web presence, but for some reason I couldn't click into it, and I couldn't find her. And so I was like, okay, I guess, she must have gotten married to somebody and moved off to Timbuktu, and she's not around. I said, but if she is around, and I stopped and I said, just kind of looked up, and I said, okay, Carrie, if you are around, would you just show up? And that was it. And then I left. Then I dropped it. I said, okay. I just said it, gave it to Spirit, just dropped it, and said, okay, if she's going to show up, she will. Well, February, I was here to help install Reverend Deidre at her installation service. And at the end of the service, I'm walking down the aisle here, and all of a sudden, she stands up, says, hi. And I looked at her and said, oh! I said, there you are. And she looked at me like, where'd that come from? And we renewed our friendship, and sometime later we ended up as a couple, and we've been together now for 10 years. This is our 10th year together, and so these things just show up in our life, right? I mean, they're experiences that happen that we just live with and we move with, and we don't try to push them. I didn't try to push the envelope. I just let it go. I just gave it to Spirit in that moment. I think that, one of the blessings about being a father and having children, I had my first child when I was 26, in 1975, and my second in 1977, and I don't think I was really, I thought I was ready, but I wasn't really ready for that experience, because I was still, I think, very much focused on my own career and trying to establish myself and all the stuff that goes along with that. But I tried to be very present, and I remember the thing about becoming a father is that I began to think about my experience with my father. And one of the things about being a parent is it does that. It makes you look at that. And I remember that, and I tried to emulate some of the things that he did, and found out that, and began to appreciate the gifts that he brought, his sense of humor, his stability, his being present, his stories, telling stories. He loved to tell stories, was one of the things that he did. And one of the things that I really remember so much about him was that when I would get into trouble, he would, he'd get serious, and he was a judge, right? So he'd get serious and kind of get his judge. He didn't put his robe on, but he might as well have. Get his judge thing going, But the next day he'd be talking to one of his friends and laughing about it. And it was like, it made me feel like, okay, he understands. He understands what it's like being a kid, and that helped. That made a difference. And he was very much, I think, his foibles. He didn't go to events and stuff like that. Are things that I took and said, okay, he didn't do this for me, but I'm going to do it for my children. So I think one of the things about fatherhood is that we learn, if we pay attention and we learn that he took his father's experience and improved upon it, I hopefully took my father's experience and improved upon it. And it's not like we denigrate that person, that we actually take it and bring it forward in our experience. And it's these decisions that we make, these fortuitous moments, these opportunities that kids open up in us. And I had the opportunity when I was 40 to have another set of kids, and I was in a different place. And I think the best years of my life well, every year is the best year of my life, but some of the most memorable and profound years of my life were those years raising my second two children and completing raising my first two, because I was engaged fully. I was there. I was in the moment, and it was such a powerful journey to do that all the way through and have that experience with them, that it changed me in meaningful and powerful ways. And even though they were preachers' kids, they were good kids. They did my two. One of the things that I like to share with people is that my second two kids, I never had to discipline them. That time they were growing up. My first two was different. But I think because I was present, there was an honesty that was there with them that I never had with the first two until later on in their experience. And so I never had to discipline until Caroline was 18, just graduated from high school, and she stole a bottle of booze from me. It was the first time, and I remember, and we were driving over from Seattle, and she was coming later with somebody else, and she sent a text to her mom, and she was worried. She said, "Dad, I'm not worried about Dad because he gets over it quickly." He says, "I'm more worried about you because you don't," in this text. And so I just thought, boy, she's really smart. She's really aware. She understands the dynamic. And so I just think that being a dad is one of the most fortuitous accidents that we can experience, that I could experience in my life. And I hope that everyone that is will appreciate that and know that and recognize that, like the speaker said, the secret to success is to place yourself in the path of the greatest number of fortuitous accidents possible. Thank you. God bless you.
I've done, they've never let me in. And somewhere from the other side, I heard those words again. They said, let me tell you a secret about a father's love. A secret that my daddy said was just between us. Say, daddies don't just love their children every now and then. It's a love without end, amen. It's a love without end, amen.
Yeah, sure is. Well, now it's time to take our gifts in our hands and just appreciate and bless them. We don't pass offering baskets now. We have 2 vessels in the back, so you can we just bless our gifts, and you can leave your gifts in the back as you go. If you're watching online, there's several ways you can give. One is you can send a text to 833-907-0510 and text GIVE, and you'll have an opportunity to give. Or you can click on our website button, donate button, or you can send a gift to this ministry. The address is on the website. And so let's take our gifts right now and just appreciate that we move into the flow of energy, that money is energy. And so as we send our energy, we send it different directions and in different places, and we buy things for ourselves that we need, and we also empower other people and organizations with that loving energy. And we know that when we give, it comes back to us in so many abundant ways. So let us bless our gifts as we sing our offering blessing. Let us pray. Father, Mother God, we acknowledge this offering as the very substance of your being, created for our use before the world was formed. We know it has been shaped and formed in our thoughts and in our hearts, and now comes into manifestation through our thoughts and our words, and enters this your ministry with your blessing upon it. According to your perfect law, it returns to each giver heaped up, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. For our increased understanding of this law, we do give thanks. Amen. So now let's all stand as we join and sing Let There Be Peace on Earth. Our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever I am, God is, because I am. And all is well. Amen.